I'm sorry, I just left PowerPoint in a quite funny setting. So now you should be able to see my presentation. And you can notice that I have changed somewhat the title of the presentation, because the last time we did the presentation there was no such thing as MemoQ 4.5, which is the latest version to date, and there were quite big changes in the department where you actually put in earlier documents to use them in your translation. No change to the glossaries though. So this is the title I chose, Leveraging Earlier Documents or Glossaries in MemoQ. Before we go on, I'd like to ask two questions. So this will take 1 minute away from the presentation. The first is, how would you rate your experience with MemoQ? It would be interesting to know, because then I can adjust the level of my presentation to the overall experience of the audience. So I'm launching this poll, and you've got 30 seconds to answer. Okay, so there are a couple of those in the audience who have never used MemoQ before, because this is not a beginner's presentation. I won't be able to give you the basics of using MemoQ, although there are a good many webinars on that as well, but I'm going to do my best to explain where we are when I'm showing you something in MemoQ or I'm showing you a procedure in the presentation. And I would also like to ask you another question about alignment. So there's another question that you have 30 seconds to answer. Okay, thank you very much. I'm closing it and returning to my presentation and launch right into the first slide here. So this is some of the marketing pitch you see when we deliver a presentation about MemoQ. So, and one of the benefits that MemoQ, or well, for that matter, any translation tool gives you is leverage. Leverage of what? Leverage of existing documents, leverage of previous translations, leverage of existing glossaries, for instance. And those translation tools only differ in the way they provide this leverage, how deep it is, how deep it goes into, for instance, expressions within segments, within sentences, how easy it is to retrieve a match from a term base or a glossary, and all that. What this presentation is about is preparing your tool for leverage. Is about the way of putting the content behind your tool, behind your project, so that you will have the matches from, well, the translation memories or the glossaries to speed up your translation task. And in that way, with this presentation, you will be able to have a look behind the curtain, so to say, what happens when you process existing documents. Well, I'm not talking about translation memories that are being built up as you move ahead with the translation. I'm talking about recycling translations that were created before MemoQ was, before you started using MemoQ, or when I'm talking about this to university students, or those who are new to translation tools as such, I usually tell them that this is also a way to process documents, document pairs, documents, source documents and their translations that were created before you actually started using any sort of translation tool. So yeah, when only documents are available, source document and its translation, you import a document in the two different languages, and then you tell the computer to align their segments to build, well, a translation memory. This is what you do to leverage existing translations, and I believe that is the concept that most of you are familiar with. However, in MemoQ, it doesn't start with a TM, not anymore, not in 4.5. So I am not going to directly tell you how to build a translation memory from the documents, but I'm going to tell you how you can use the document pairs as if they were a translation memory. Because what you build instead is a LiveDocs corpus. Well, some users, some experienced MemoQ users were a bit puzzled and confused when they first saw MemoQ 4.5, because when you go into a project in MemoQ 4.5, which I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes, there is no alignment icon that used to be there, and there is no apparent alignment program that is supposed to be in every decent translation tool. So they actually kept asking me, or support, product support for that matter, where the alignment had gone. And I also delivered training just last Saturday where people actually asked me the same questions. So you can align documents and put them in a so-called LiveDocs corpus. I'm going to tell you what a LiveDocs corpus is. But first, let me talk about alignment a bit. Because what happens during alignment? MemoQ breaks up the both documents, the source document and the translation, into sentences. I wonder if there is anybody in the audience who have ever tried to program an aligner, or was ever involved in linguistic research that involved using alignment programs. The first time I encountered this was in something like 1995. So what the computer has to do is chop up both documents into, well, segments, these approximate sentences, and try to set up a match between each source segment and its counterpart in the translated document. You would say that, well, this is easy, because as you move ahead with the translation, you translate sentence by sentence, or you don't. So there could be problems. Sometimes it is pretty straightforward, and sometimes it's not. And that is where the computer has problems, because no computer was ever made that understood human language. And this is a problem, because the computer doesn't really know what a sentence is. What the computer knows is to chop up the text where it encounters, for instance, a full stop, a space, and then a capital letter. This is how it goes with English or Hungarian or German or whatever. And even that could cause problems because what happens if in the English text there is Mr. somebody, where there is a full stop, a space, and a capital letter, and no new sentence is started. So, and then you begin setting up in the segmentation rules. You begin setting up lists of abbreviations and other types of other types of exceptions. And if you have ever encountered segmentation rules in any translation tool, not only MemoQ, you can have an idea of the difficulty that the computer has when it has to deal with human language. And when you look at two texts in languages that you do speak, even then sometimes you have to make some sort of mental effort to be able to determine if the text you see in the translated part is actually the translation of what particular sentence in the source. So this is what the computer has to do automatically after chopping up the documents into sentences. And what I'm saying here is that this automatic matching will never be 100% correct. Because the computer will not understand human language. It's a purely statistical process. It's number crunching. It's the worst sort of computational number crunching, mostly based on the length of segments and the appearance of so-called anchors like, for instance, abbreviations, proper names, terms, numbers, whatever that the computer can distinguish. So it won't be correct, and there will be errors at times. If you look at the documents, you can predict how error-prone the alignment of that document will be, and sometimes we are not happy with the alignment results. I'm going to show you some aspects of this in a couple of minutes. But if you are not happy, you could give it some thought. If you could align two documents better than the computer, if you don't know any of the languages in the language pair, for instance. Well, it would be quite impossible for me to align Tagalog to Chinese. I speak none of those languages. I cannot even read Chinese, which is not something I'm boasting. It's just you should just imagine two languages that you don't speak, and you are presented with two documents, one in the other, one in one of the languages, and the other, and you are told that the other document is supposed to be the translation of the former one. Then what do you do as a human? So this is the problem the computer faces. So, and this is the computer programmers run all kinds of circles to make it sure that the user is made aware of the potential problems of alignment and still given the proper means of correcting alignment. So, yeah. And when will be there problems? For instance, I believe everybody who has some experience in translation has decided or had decided at some point or another to translate a long and complicated sentence in the form of two or three separate sentences. So when the number of sentences is not the same, the computational aligner already has a problem. Or there are parts that were not translated because they were irrelevant in the target culture. Let me give you an example here. I'm also involved with, well, failed to introduce myself properly at the beginning, but apart from my name being Balázs Kis, I'm also one of the founders of Kilgrey, and I'm involved in the design of MemoQ. But I'm also involved in a publishing company that publishes computer books, and we have recently translated a book about Android. Well, this is Google's infamous mobile operating system. And it's a very nice book for power users, but it contained a good many details about mobile service providers, mobile phone providers, that exist only in the United States. And because the same services don't exist in Hungary, where the book is being marketed in our translation, or in most European countries, for that matter, we had to omit those parts from the translation. So I have an English chapter of the book that includes whatever 3 pages of some sort of mobile service that I don't understand because I'm not an American. I'm not American. I have never tried it. And you have the Hungarian translation with these 3 pages missing. How does the computer find this out? Or there are parts inserted. Again, this is something that occurs in translating books and maybe other parts, other types of documents as well. When the author fails to explain something in a way that your intended target audience will understand, and when a publisher encounters something like that, he inserts a comment or a footnote, giving some more explanation, or when the author is mistaken, something or something is different in the target culture, you have to insert explanations or footnotes or whatever. Then the translation will contain, then the document that you call the translation will contain extra text, which is again something that the computer needs to identify. And sometimes it succeeds, sometimes it doesn't. And of course, it happens that there's a different order of segments, and it doesn't always come from the different nature of languages. For instance, you use a different order of segments when you work your text around a bulleted list in Hungarian, and there's a different order in French. So this is something that you can encounter in legal text, for instance. But that is not only the language, and that is not always the language. It can be also the difference in the file format. For instance, you are aligning an InDesign document to a Word document, where for instance, the order of the table cells could be represented in a different order. And this is again something that the computer has to recognize. And sometimes it succeeds, sometimes it doesn't. So let's go into some practical aspects here. Well, there is an alignment module in MemoQ, despite the fact that you don't see the title alignment anymore in version 4.5 when you go to the project workspace. I'm going to show that to you immediately. But you can align different file formats. For instance, Word, a 2010 document to a PDF, or an InDesign document to HTML, or whatever your choice is. The bigger the difference between the two file formats, the more error-prone the process is. But you can do it. And The aligner is also very resilient. This is because we are using two approaches at the same time. One is the classic algorithm of calculating the length of the segments, and also and the other using anchors like contents of a term base or abbreviations that appear in the same way. So, and also formatting is taken into account. So if there is misalignment meaning that a segment in the source document is not aligned not properly aligned to the translation. It's aligned to a different segment in the translated document than its translation. So yeah, the sentence pair is wrong. If there is a misalignment, there could be the two texts could be shifted along each other, and the misalignments could go on till the end of the document, but not in MemoQ's case. And in MemoQ, it usually recovers the links, the sentence pairs will be correct a few segments, like 4 or 5 segments later. And the last comment on this slide contains the most important statement regarding a LiveDocs corpus. This is where you put your document pairs. From a LiveDocs corpus, you get the translation memory like hits without reviewing and exporting the alignment results. And this is good, and this is not so good at the same time. And I'm going to tell you how MemoQ deals with it. So I put together a step-by-step procedure that shows how you can use the live align facility in MemoQ. Live align is the alignment where the aligned documents go into a LiveDocs corpus. So live align is a marketing term here. And one of you have asked if you will be able to access a copy of the presentation afterwards, or you should take notes. Sorry, I just noticed this question. The webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be available from our website, well, as early as this week, so you don't have to take notes. So the first step is to set up a project. This is how MemoQ looks like when you set up a project. There are a couple of aspects of a project, like you have translations where you list the documents that you need to translate, and then you have your resources. And one type of resources in MemoQ is, of course, a translation memory. But the newest type of resource in MemoQ is LiveDocs. And in LiveDocs you have corpora or corpuses. It's a Latin noun here, so you can choose to put it in plural in the English way or the Latin way. So the English plural is corpuses, and the Latin plural is corpora. It all depends on your preference, of course, how you use it. I prefer corpora. But then I spent 4 years studying Latin in high school, so maybe that's the reason. So in the upper list, well, first you go to LiveDocs. So you have the project workspace. You've got a pane called Project Home. Every project has a Project Home tab. And within that, you go to LiveDocs. And for those of you who are new to MemoQ, it's interesting to know that there are other tabs in your workspace. Like in this screen, you can see text2_en and text1_en. And these are document tabs. If you click a document tab, MemoQ will display the document for you. But then if you want to set up a LiveDocs do alignment in MemoQ, first you need to go to LiveDocs. Then you need to create or choose a corpus. So the upper list in the LiveDocs pane show the list of corpora that are available on your computer. You either click create or use new to create a new one, or you can choose an existing corpus and click the checkbox next to its name. Without that, you won't be able to access its contents within the project. So this is the second thing you need to do. And then you go add alignment pair. I didn't show you, I didn't put that dialog box here, so I'm going to switch to live demonstration after this. But then when you add the two documents, like the source document and its translation to your corpus, it will appear in the list. See, if you see something like a sheet of paper torn into two vertically and sewn together with green string, that is, and of course the name shows two document names actually, that is an alignment pair. This is interesting to know because a LiveDocs corpus could contain other types of objects. So a document pair that is being aligned is one, but you can also put in bilingual documents. You can also put in, like you have a TTS file in two languages and you put it in the corpus, and that will be part of the corpus. You can put in monolingual documents that are written in one language only. I usually use it for reference when I'm translating into a foreign language, like when I'm translating into English, because English is not my native tongue. So when I have to translate into English, I usually need reassurances about using a phrase or another in particular. And then I prefer to have target language documents in my corpus that I can concordance against. But this is only a V2 because we are talking about alignment and establishing translated sentence pairs. So this is the first step. You set up the document. Let me just switch to, yes, here we have MemoQ. So in my MemoQ window, you see the same content here. So when I go add alignment pair, I have this window. I can set up all kinds of settings. For those of you who are familiar with MemoQ, in alignment you can use the same document types, and you can use the same import settings as in translation. So you can process all types of documents that you can also translate. And you can use different types of documents in alignment. Like I'm going to find one of my examples. What's happening? Yeah, okay. That's different. Here I go. Like I specify one document and I specify another document. That could be cumbersome, because then I'm specifying the documents one by one. But there is another way. If I click cancel here, I can go add multiple alignments here, which means I can add multiple documents, like 2 documents in German, and then I can add 2 documents in English, and then based on the document names and the document types, MemoQ will align the file names together. But if you are not happy with the alignment of the file names, you can change this alignment as well. So you can set up alignment between multiple file pairs in one phase here. So this is what happens when you click add alignment pair or add multiple alignments. let me just get back to the process because I want to give you a general idea here. So when you add the alignment pairs, the document pairs, no matter whether you add one document or you add several document pairs, like 10 document pairs or 100 document pairs, the documents that you add here will be aligned immediately. So when you see a document pair in the document list in a LiveDocs corpus, they are already aligned. They have gone through the automatic alignment process that exists in MemoQ with all the problems that I have outlined in previous slides. But then what you do is you go into your document and you start translating. Because a LiveDocs corpus is in many respects very similar to a translation memory. This means that when you add a document pair that is aligned to a LiveDocs corpus, or when you add a bilingual document to a LiveDocs corpus, MemoQ will immediately start giving you matches as if it was a translation memory. Because what do we have? We've got two documents. Both documents are chopped up into sentences. The sentences are matched to each other, so there are translation units, source and translation segment pairs that can be used. So then MemoQ will index this data like a translation memory. So you get a translation memory match. We lost some information here, but what you can see here is, especially if you are familiar with MemoQ, you know that translation memory matches are marked by the red color by default. You can change those colors, but this is not something I would recommend. But you don't only have the color here. You also have a little icon next to in the match. And this icon shows that the translation is coming from alignment. It's not coming from a translation memory. It's like a match coming from a translation memory, but it's different. It's coming from alignment. It's coming from a LiveDocs corpus and from an aligned document pair in particular. What you don't see here is the match rate, because what I did here, yes, if you look at the bottom right corner of my live MemoQ window, that shows 85%. But if you look at the details pane here that is supposed to show the differences between the source text found in the text and the source text found in the database, or in the LiveDocs corpus in that case, you see no differences. So this is actually an exact match. And we still get 85% because I have, well, by default, I think you would get 95%. But this 85% is displayed because I have set up MemoQ to apply a 5% penalty when a match is coming from a LiveDocs corpus, and it also has to apply another 10% penalty because the match is coming from an alignment pair that hasn't been confirmed by a human. Because I just dumped the two documents into the LiveDocs corpus and started using the matches immediately without looking at the actual alignment. So this is what happens. When you align two documents, the contents are readily available, which could be a very good thing. In most cases, the precision of the alignment is well over 90%, which means that you have at least 90% of a chance that the translations you get from an alignment pair is actually correct. Is the intended translation. I wonder how correct the translation as such is, but it would give you the intended translation. And the third step, the alignment can have problems. There were at least 5 minutes when I talked to you about nothing but problems with automatic alignment. But so misalignment can happen. It's something that cannot be avoided. It will happen eventually. But then, if misalignment happens, you just right-click the match that exposes the problem, and you choose Show Document, and MemoQ will display the document pair in the alignment editor. This is how the alignment editor looks like. Well, I put in a very, very nasty Word document that is something like 15 years old or something like that, but never mind. This is how it looks like. If you are familiar with MemoQ, earlier versions of MemoQ, then this is familiar because the alignment editor is more or less the same. It has some new features like you can edit the text, but yeah, it's more or less the same. And if you are familiar with other alignment tools like Trados WinAlign, it is similar enough so that you can start working with that. Here you can link, unlink, join, split, edit, and realign segments in the alignment editor. But you don't go through the entire document here because you don't have time. What you do, let me show you something more sophisticated here, because here it shows you the first sentence of the document. But if I go to somewhere more deeply in the document, just close it, right-click, Show Document, it will jump to the segment, the very segment that yielded the translation. And this is important because the way you actually, let me just move, yeah, back here. The way you recognize the misalignment is through the match that you get from the translation, the LiveDocs corpus. Did you notice that something is not right with the match you received from MemoQ? And then you can go into the document and correct the alignment around the misalignment. Like you find where the misalignment started, correct 1 or 2 segments and get MemoQ to realign it, and then close the editor, and you don't review the entire document. Why is that useful? So what's shown here is the traditional approach to alignment. It's like you import the document pairs, then you review this is how it was in MemoQ 4.2 and earlier. This is how it is with the Trados WinAlign. You review the alignment of the entire document, and then you export the reviewed results in a translation memory. And you don't do it document by document. You just pull a lot of documents together and spend 1 day at best. And when you are through all this work, then you can start translating. But then there's a big problem. The big problem is that when you build a translation memory, you can never predict how much of it will actually be used. Some say that actually on average, 2/3 of translation memory content will not be used. It's the useful part of a translation memory is actually something like 1/3 of it, except for cases when you know that you have to deal with a new version of the same document. That's different. But I'm talking about the average. And if if you know that, well, okay, 1/3 of this translation memory is useful, the problem is you don't know which 1/3 it is. So if you have this, you have to go through the entire document because you cannot predict what will be recycled from the translation memory and what will not. The problem is that you actually spend time and effort with correcting segment pairs that won't ever occur in a match in your translation work later on. But this is something you cannot predict. But here, when you are using a LiveDocs corpus, you can start translating right after importing the document pair. And then you start getting matches, and then you correct the links around the misalignment, and only around the misalignment. That means that you correct only those segment pairs that you know are useful because they have appeared as matches for you. So this is what you do. You translate. When a misalignment occurs, you go into the document, fix the links, and then continue translating. And when you spot a misalignment next time, you do this again. But then again, it's not more than 5 minutes. So what you don't have in the case of a corpus is the lot of work that you have to put in before you can use the resource for translating. But of course, LiveDocs allow you to use the traditional material as well if you want to set up authoritative or authentic translation memories, because you can export the result, the content result of an alignment process into a translation memory. And here is when I'm addressing a couple of questions. I'm sorry, these questions appear in a separate display, and I have to look at the display so that I can see the questions. So we shouldn't be using Control Q anymore to commit to the translation memory. Well, actually, allow me to correct this. You use Control Enter to commit to the translation memory. Yes, you should. It's different. The scenario I'm talking about is when you have to process earlier documents because you don't have the translation memory. But a LiveDocs corpus won't help you recycle the internal repetitions within your current translation task. So imagine a LiveDocs corpus contains earlier documents, but you still need the translation memory to, for instance, if you work in a team setup, you still need the translation memory to use the internal repetitions or the internal fuzzy matches within your translation task, because the documents you are working on are not parts of your LiveDocs corpus. LiveDocs corpus is created from earlier documents. So yes, you do need the translation memory. The translation memory is something like the live, the online resource, the immediate resource where you put in your translation. This is how your fellow translator will be able to access your translation that you made 1 minute ago. This is not something a LiveDocs corpus can do. Yeah, I hope I was clear enough. When you finish the project, do you then delete these files or retain them indefinitely? By default, you do retain them indefinitely. So MemoQ does retain them. You can of course remove them from the corpus. You can remove the entire corpus, so you can delete the corpus from your hard disk. But if you don't do that, the corpus will remain there, and you will be able to use it later on in different projects. And the corpora are actually multilingual, so they have languages of documents that you put in. You don't have to say that this corpus is for English or Hungarian or whatever. Yeah. Sorry, is this document taken from alignment pairs? or is it a new project? I'm not sure I get the question, but the document I have shown, well, it was a new alignment pair, so I've created it on Saturday for another sort of this demonstration. So in that sense, it wasn't an existing project, but I'm not sure I understand the question. So if you could reformulate it, would be appreciated. How do you access the alignment editor? There are two ways. One way is to, well, if you get a match from the corpus, you can right-click here and show documents from the translation resource pane. And here I have it. Or if you go to the corpus, because the last time I did it from the document that I was translating, but if you have the corpus here, you can right-click the document pair and then choose View Edit. And the same happens, it goes to the alignment editor. So you access it from within MemoQ, from Project Home, Live Docs, the corpus, and right-clicking the document pair and selecting View Edit. How do you correct misalignments in a Live Docs corpus? This is what the alignment editor is good for. For instance, I can link these two documents, two sentences here, or I believe there is a sort of, there used to be a segmentation problem here, but I don't see it. So, but never mind, let me do something artificial. I can split the segments here and here. And and there is one segment pair that is not linked, and then I can link them together. Or you can see in the first sentence, the third segment, you can see these nasty text here. I can edit the text so that the tags are not there anymore and won't get stored in the document. So you don't get them in the matches and things like that. This is how you correct the misalignments and even the text. When using translation memories from other members of my team, they often display with loads of tags of the type 4. Will this prevent the program from recognizing matches? No. This is specifically designed to recognize the matches when there are tags. When your source text has tags, hasn't got tags, and the translation memory content or the LiveDocs corpus has tags, the match rate will be something like between 95 and 100%. So when you get a match rate from MemoQ which is 95% or more, then you can be sure that the text is the same. The difference can be the tags, the numbers, and the punctuation. Sorry to interrupt. Do we need to save the alignment document before we proceed to translation? No need. No need to do that because MemoQ always stores these things in databases, so these are automatically saved. When you add the alignment pair, and the alignment automatically happens, that also means that the document pair is saved. And the same goes for the alignment editor. So I made this change. It's automatically saved in something like 5 seconds. But the same goes for documents. So you don't even need to save the translation documents that you work with because MemoQ uses a database to store them while you are working on your project. So how do you know which documents to import into the LiveDocs? For example, I am translating a book for a hotel management school for the 30th anniversary, and even though I have done the translations for the past few years, all of this material is new. Should I still try to import all the text I have already translated? I have finished about 1/3 of this book, but I have not had any repetitions of what I have already done. Well, it's a tricky question. I would, without knowing the document, I believe I wouldn't import everything, but I would select some, well, 1/3 of it, whatever, some very relevant documents, and I would still import them, because it's not only the fuzzy matches or the exact matches that you get that matter. It's also the how do you say that? Yeah, it's also the concordance results. So even when you are not getting translation memory-like matches, like fuzzy matches, even then you can use concordance against the corpus, both in the both in the source language and the target language. So I would say I wouldn't import everything, but I would add some very relevant documents and would use concordance against the corpus. How do you create a translation memory from a corpus? Well, it's best if I show you. Actually, it's not the corpus that you create a translation memory from. It's an alignment pair. In the alignment menu, there is still an export to TM command. So if everything is confirmed, then, and you have a primary translation memory in your project, you can use the alignment menu and the export to TM command to export it. You don't have to save it. You just have to add a translation memory to your project. I'm using an existing one, but I could just as well click Create and Use New. And then it says this is the primary one. Then I go to my alignment pair, and then I can export this to a translation memory. Yeah, Penelope is complaining about the questions that I'm reading out is distorted. I hope that the recording will be better. It seems that the microphone level adjustments is out of line. Yeah, here I have it. Yes, I'm afraid I cannot do anything about it. I'm just hoping the recording will be better, and when you listen to it, when you later download and listen to it, it will be better. Okay, if there are no more questions here, I would mention two things before we wrap it up, because we still have 5 minutes. There are very good linguistic aligners, like this KCS or Rabi aligner. So there are a couple of situations, there could be situations when the existing alignment, this alignment model is not good enough, because there are too many misalignments. And then there are, for a couple of language pairs, there are linguistic aligners where that yield very more accurate alignment. So you might, if the alignment results that you get from MemoQ or from the translation tool, other translation tool that you are using, is not sufficient, it's not satisfactory, you might need to look into these tools. I'm not going to go into details about them, because I still have to say a few words about term basis, which is quite simple, because what you have, most of you have Excel. It's the existing glossaries. If you don't create them in a translation tool, you usually use a Word table or use an Excel file. So what you need to do is put them into Excel. From Word you can simply paste them and save them as a text file, as a Unicode text file. This is really important that you select this, because MemoQ uses a different term here, it's CSV. but you don't need CSV, you need Unicode text. MemoQ will be able to process it. Like you have a list of term bases there, you right-click the name of the term base, you go import from CSV or TMX, and then MemoQ will recognize the columns in your table, even when it is not CSV, but a tab-separated text. I'm afraid I cannot go into more detail here, but it's fairly straightforward and it's quite well covered in the help. But because I received some more questions here, so I'm going to read out one more. Why do you need both a corpus and a TM? You don't. It's up to you. It's up to your preference of the way of working. But what I usually do, I store legacy material in a corpus, like existing materials. Like if I'm translating books, I'm using the earlier editions of the same book as a LiveDocs corpus, or I'm using books from the same author or from the same publisher as a LiveDocs corpus. But this LiveDocs corpus won't contain the book that I am translating right now. So what I am, even in textbooks, there are, well, something like up to 30% internal fuzzy matches. So this is why I need a translation memory that will contain the translation that I'm making right now. So I put old material in the LiveDocs corpus, and I put new material in the translation memory so that other translators, if I'm working in a team setup, can leverage it. And it is also important that while you are doing the translation memory also serves as a backup. For instance, it's quite customary for us to suggest that if you have difficulties with exporting the file, which unfortunately happens from time to time with all translation tools, because even the document formats and the document format filters are not perfect. The translation memory, if you lose the document, the translation memory still has your translation, and you can restore the translation. If it's old material, you don't need it. You do know that the translation, that you do have the translation. You cannot lose the translation anymore. But it's not the case with new translations you are doing. So these are the two reasons I can give you why you would need a LiveDocs corpus and a translation memory. And a corpus for me is a much healthier thing than a translation memory, because in a translation memory the documents are chopped up, it's in the wrong order, you have to run extra circles in terms of data that needs to be stored in the translation memory so that the context is remembered and the order can be restored, and this is not something that you have to pay attention to in a corpus, because the corpus contains documents as they are and you can look at them. Yeah, I get the criticism. And I'm happy to go into more into TB importing. I was anxious about the time, but if you have more time, I'm happy to show it in more detail. So those of you who have time to stay and want to hear about importing term bases in more detail can stay, and I can cover it. So I have time. One last question I'm answering about corpora first. So you should create corpora from your own translations before starting to build translation memory. Translation memories. I'm not saying that, because you can create corpora. For a good many projects I'm using all the translation memories. You can have things like all the translation memories. There is no prerequisite of creating corpora. It's something that you have to decide for yourself. If you are concerned about the quality of your the old TMs, you can take the reviewed documents and put them into corpora, and then you can be sure that you get the right quality of content. But, well, that depends on too many things for me to be able to answer it. And now I would go into term bases a bit more. And because in term bases in MemoQ, I wonder how familiar you are with it, but term bases in MemoQ are quite simplistic. It's not like in rather smarty terms. So in MemoQ you have a fixed structure. I will show that to you. In a project you also have term bases like here, and I'm going to edit this term base so that you will be able to see it. You have this table view here, and you have all sorts of details at the bottom part of the screen. But if you work in, let me just add a document here so that a document the project, so I will be able to show you the matches that you get from a TB. Like, let me go to the publishing. Yeah, it is from CMAC. Yeah, that's it. Let me just import one document so that I will be able to show you the hits that you get from a term base. And I'm sorry, I have to turn off Euro term bank because it will. Let me just try to find one more. Yeah, it's open for editing. I'm sorry. Okay, let me just add something. It's too scarce. It's too scarce. This is what it looks like. Okay, this is what it looks like. So when you have a hit from a term base in MemoQ, you will get a pretty print of it, where you have the source language, you have the target language, and then you have some metadata, and you can go into editing this entry. But this is how you build your translation memory translation memory term base up front. But when you have an existing glossary, it will, like I said, it will be most likely it will be a table, like a Word table or an Excel table. But it's a Word table. You don't have to worry because you just select the table in Word and paste it into Excel. Let me just give you a hint here. Let me just insert a Word table here. I don't have glossaries in Word. But this is why I have to make it up. But if I select this table, I open up Excel. Sorry for that. I can just paste it here, and it will be a proper Excel table. But this is not the quickest thing that you do, because MemoQ, if you want to import this into MemoQ, MemoQ has to be able to recognize the each column as a piece of data that you import into a term base, and most likely your columns will contain terms, not only terms, but they will contain terms. And the fastest way of getting this into MemoQ is to use column headers that are named after the language. The quickest way is to use column headers that have the English name of the language that you are using. And then I have this Excel sheet here, and all that I need to do is save it as Unicode text. There are a good, like I said, MemoQ says CSV, comma separated values, and now we realize that this is something that we shouldn't have used, because when you say CSV to MemoQ, it will mess up the character encoding. Like, you cannot save such a simple thing properly as French into Hungarian glossary, because there will be characters messed up in French if you choose if your computer is set to Hungarian, and there will be characters messed up in Hungarian if your computer is set to English or French. But if it's Unicode text, which is not comma separated, it's tab separated, it will be just as good. So I'm saving a sample glossary here, and I go through all this, and this is a problem that Excel has, and this needs to be overcome. So these are the two most, when it comes to putting tables into MemoQ term bases, the most important two words that you have to remember is Unicode text. This is the single most important aspect of this. And let me go back into MemoQ and put this into a term base. Like I just right-click any term base here, and then I go import from CSV TMX. This is where MemoQ says CSV. I would prefer text files right here, but yeah, this is how it was done in the ancient times, and it remained like that. But still, it remembers sample glossary.txt. So I just read it up and open it. And here you see what I meant, that English and Hungarian is there. That English and Hungarian are the column headers is automatically recognized by MemoQ, and it also recognizes that this is the name of a language, and it is automatically being imported as a term. So if you have a table in that form, all you need to do is specify the file, look at this dialog that I'm showing right now, and click OK, and then it will be there. Okay, it's not that slow here, and here it is at the end of the file. There were a couple of sample entries here. There's a question here. I'm using MemoQ with the French interface. Do I still need to use the English names of the languages as the column header? Frankly, I don't know, but the last time I looked, you had to, I'm afraid. So I would encourage you to give it a try, but most likely you will need to use the English names of the languages. And yeah, and there is an interesting aspect to this. So what I have shown you is the very basics here. But the important thing that you need to know about this is also that you can have other types of columns in a table that you import as a term base. And then you can import them as a definition for a specific language, or you can import them as other fields. and I don't know, and you can skip them just as well if there are fields that you don't use in the MemoQ term base, for instance, if it's coming from a different system. But and I know about these names of the languages, but I don't know by heart the names of all the column headers that MemoQ expects. So if you want to set up things like the linguistic gender, like what would I say, an example, a note, description, a definition in a language, all you need to do, this takes a little bit of experimenting here. All you need to do is add some of this information to your term base. And do I have to commit it? I believe not. And then what you need to do is export the term base into a CSV. Okay, I have to close it. You cannot export it while you are from here while you are editing it. Be sure to select tab as the delimiter, UTF-8 as the encoding, that is the default, so you don't have to change it. And here you can choose the fields that you want to export. And here you see the column headers that MemoQ will use. And MemoQ will also expect these column headers. So for instance, if you want to enter a note, then you have to add a column to your table, like, let's see, this sample glossary. What I do here is enter entry, note, and again, and import it again. You can see that it recognized that there's a third column here, entry underscore note, and it also recognized that it will be imported as the other field code note. So this is how you can know what column headers MemoQ is expecting. I believe this is all that you need to know about it. I don't really think I could give you technical intricacies that would make a lot of difference here. So now I'm awaiting your questions, if there are any. Okay, thank you very much. What do you do if you have various translations from the same source term? You can add multiple columns, like you can have two columns, say in French, for instance, or you can have in the French column you can separate the different translations by semicolons. What is the CSV from the main menu? What main menu? I don't really get this. I'm afraid I don't understand that. But maybe some clarification is needed. From project home. Well, it's like you mean the, I'm just right-clicking the name of the term base, and I can import from CSV or TMX, like I can import TMX files into term bases, and I can export them into to CSV. So this is what I can tell you. I don't remember any other place where it would say CSV. And the CSV means comma separated values, and this only means a text file that we need to import into that turn-based MemoQ. Okay. Another question: where on your computer do you store all your MemoQ files and documents? Well, it's two locations. You have two locations. In Documents, in your Documents folder, there is the My MemoQ Projects folder. This is where the MemoQ projects are, but this is not where the translation memories or turn bases or are stored, because if you have a corpus or a translation memory, you can use one corpus or one translation memory in several projects. So there's another place that is called Program Data, MemoQ, and there you have translation memories, term bases, and MemoQ will show them to you. So if you really want to know where your copy of MemoQ stores it, you go to Tools and Options, and you go to Locations. And this will tell you where all the translation memories, term bases, and LiveDocs corpora are stored, plus where the MemoQ projects are. Okay, last question for today. A published corpus from a client computer to the MemoQ server gets indexed automatically, or do I have to open the client MemoQ on the server and make the changes there? No, you don't have to. It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be indexed automatically. It has to be. It is actually. So. So I would like to thank you for your time, and I'm sorry for going over time. There were so many questions about LiveDocs, and this is a new topic here. So I would propose to my colleagues to separate the two topics, because this alignment topic could take an entire webinar. But nevertheless, I hope you found it useful. And there will be a recording available from our website very soon. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great day, have a great evening.